Okay, this episode of Chicken Park, I started making it on December 10th of 2022. The episode was originally just called Marmalade, but as I was putting the finishing touches on it before I finalized it and downloaded it, I just changed the name to The Marmalade War, and I refilmed that title sequence. I thought it fit in with the Secret Society Godfather kind of theme. I just had this random idea about marmalade, and why did they say orange marmalade if orange is the only kind that there is? Why would they say that? And I looked it up on Amazon, and I got some marmalade that was like made with limes or pears. I forget what it was, but anyway. You know, it was something I would have asked when I was little. You know, something I would have said to my mom or dad, you know. You know, and they would have been like, I don't know, you know, whatever. Nobody ever knew what to say to me, you know. Anyway, I had this idea of the kid in the kitchen asking his dad that question and what he would say, and it just kind of took off from there. So that's where I filmed the first scene of Sissy sitting in the kitchen talking to Kevin. And Kevin says pretty much what I just said about his own parents, only he's doing the same exact thing to Sissy that his father did to him. And that was it. I just kind of set it to the side. I didn't know where I would take it or what would happen next. So this is my creative process. You know, I don't write anything down. I have no idea where the story's going to go or what's going to happen next. And yet I took the scenes and the characters and did all the recordings and the voices and put it all together. Now this kitchen scene is one of the very first scenes that I ever actually drew. And I think it was first used in episode 1 or 2. The only real interesting thing I think about the scene is the sign on the wall. Now, Kevin's a chicken, and his wife left him, so I assume that she did most of the decorating in the house. So, Bok Baguk is, I guess it's kind of like an inspirational thing that chickens have. 2 weeks later on Christmas Day, I took another look at it and I thought, well, next Kevin would probably take some of this marmalade into his work, right? I know he has a coworker who's a mouse who's popped up in some other episodes. Now I have another video on my channel, I'll link to it below, that shows how I draw these characters and how I specifically drew this exact character. But like I said, I'll link to it below. Although I never gave him a name or much of a personality, he was just some random filler character in the background, kind of nabbering on, you know, at Kevin. So I drew a tie on him and I put some glasses on him, and I figured the two of them are sitting in the break room, and Kevin is reading the back of the cracker box. And at this point, he doesn't even have a name. He's just the mouse coworker is eating the marmalade. Now this is the scene that I got on the Cartoon Animator 4 Marketplace. You'll notice here I replaced the back wall and then I added the further back wall so that the door opening would look realistic. I added the time clock, the time cards, and the clock on the back wall, which I drew all of those for different sets and pieces. The clock I have in the background on almost all of the episodes. I added the table and chairs from another prop set that I had, or a different scene. I believe it was a cafeteria scene. All the snacks and the cup I drew myself, including Grandmom's orange marmalade and the Bits cracker box, which I drew myself. And as you can see, it opens and closes. I drew some new sprites for the refrigerator so that it opens and closes. And all that happens in this scene is the mouse is eating the jam and he says it's really good, and he's like, okay, thanks, I'll let my grandmother know, and that's it. That's the whole scene. There's really nothing funny or really, you know, much of a plot here. Now, the only real joke that I made, and it's not even really a joke, it's just one of those observations that, like, Seinfeld makes, that you only ever see orange marmalade, you never see any other kind of marmalade. What a quick Google search will show you that there actually is other kinds of marmalade. So I figured the mouse character would be kind of one of those know-it-alls who just spouts off random facts. Kind of like Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory, which I happened to be watching at the time. So I looked it up on Google, and I saw the history of Marmalade. And you see it's just all over Europe. You have the Scots, the Portuguese, there's the Spanish thing in Seville. In Great Britain, they make it. So he's spouting off all these random facts, and then Kevin kind of dives in and makes a joke about how people get so attached to their stories that they actually come into conflict with each other. And that's where the scene ends. So a week and a half later, on the 2nd of January, 23, I went to figure the next thing Kevin does is he goes to see Rhonda in the supermarket and ask her if there's other kinds of marmalade other than orange, or if she has any kind of marmalade in the store. I don't know why Kevin doesn't Google things. I guess because otherwise there wouldn't be an episode. But anyway, there's a lot going on here. This set is part of a set that I bought as part of props with the animation software. Character Animator 4. So these props up front here are all ones that I bought. And you'll notice here I replaced the back wall that used to have all the stickers all over it with the sales. It would say apples 29 cents or whatever. I drew a whole new wall. I figured this would be the same another angle. And I drew some windows, and I took a street prop that I had drawn some time ago, and I put that as the backdrop. So it's across the street from the Ooh La La boutique. Rhonda is a tiger. I drew her trying to do some different kind of body types and things. I really liked the way she turned out, although I think she probably looks something like the Pink Panther too much for me. Anyway, now I did not consciously decide to make her look like the Pink Panther. I was experimenting drawing different body shapes and types. So I drew a thin female tiger, and then a kind of pudgy looking male lion. And their son, a liger, who has more like a bodybuilder type physique. Anyway, that's a little side note about that character. Let's get back to talking about the episode. And here in the background, you'll see there's a frog wearing a tie who I don't have a name for. There's Rico, the big giant monster truck. That's Durag. He's running past. And this is Grandmom. This is Kevin's grandmom walking past. She's looking a little bit tired. So he asks about the marmalade, and then he leaves. And that is the next scene. This is as far as we've come. All we know is that he got some marmalade in the mail. He shared it with a coworker. They had a conversation about the history of marmalade. So 1 month later, on the 2nd of February, I took another look at this and figured where I was going to go with it. Now we know that the marmalade is a big deal to Kevin's grandmother, and I had this idea that she would find out that he was asking everyone about different kinds of marmalade other than orange, which is what she makes. And as she found that out, she would get all upset, and she would, like, is my marmalade not good enough for you? It was just coincidental that I had used her as a background character in the marketplace scene. But I imagine she walks in, Rhonda says, "Oh, I just saw your grandson, and he was asking about different kinds of marmalade." And she gets all upset. So she's in the store, and she's already upset about the marmalade, and she runs into Johnny's grandmother. And maybe she says something like, "Why are you so upset? You don't even know what marmalade is." And then they throw down, as you do when you're a grandmother. So I spent a couple days. I drew the other grandmother character. I imagined there would be, what's a public fight without some punks cheering you on. So I drew the punks all doing, each one doing their individual cheer. I imagine there had to be a police officer there too. And so I just drew the whole scene. And then I decided that it was a good scene. I liked it, but it was a little too busy for me to work out the whole mechanics of everybody and what they're all saying and what they're all doing. And it was a little much for very little return. So I just kind of put that scene to the side. Now we've established that Kevin is one of 12 siblings.
Well, I was one of 12.
I guess your mother laid a dozen eggs.
Yeah, that's funny. I haven't ever heard that one before.
But the only ones we've met so far are Brock and Meredith. So I imagine a kind of bossy oldest brother named Dave who thought he was really a big deal, but Brock really looks up to him, but Kevin doesn't think much of him at all. With Kevin's family's all involved, the grandmother's upset, and Brock comes to Kevin and says Dave is really mad and he wants to see you, right? And even though I didn't use the fight scene, I'm going to show it as a flashback here. So Kevin and Brock, they really get into it as they always do. You even see Brock kind of pointing his finger at him and Kevin slaps it away. They're really hostile with each other until Brock brings up Dave, and then Kevin is just kind of mocking him. Kevin is not afraid of Dave. He just really doesn't care. As with most other things in his life, he's kind of neutral about it. You'll notice the fishbowl at Kevin's front door with the fish swimming back and forth and all the bubbles and the one-eyed cave monster. So then I do the drive over, and this was really easy. I didn't have to do any new props. Everything I'd already had and used in previous episodes. The only thing I had to do was the car. I had to do a police car. That didn't take me long at all. All I did was use an existing car prop I had drawn, and I did new colors on it so it matched the police car. And then instead of drawing the back seat, I thought it would be funny if he's just carrying a prisoner along with him, all this while he's running errands for his brother. He's got a guy sitting in the back seat. And of course it's Do-Rag, right? So this is February 3rd, and I'm about 5 minutes into this episode, and I still don't have any clear idea of where this all is going. I don't even know what Dave is going to even look like at this point. So I drew Dave as like the Godfather type behind a big desk. I spent a lot of time drawing his office with the wood paneling. The moose head is not a prop. It's actually a talking character. You can tell it's in the background blinking and moving around. I drew the exterior of the mansion. I drew the fountain from a GIF, from an animated GIF. I just extracted some frames and made the fountain. I still wasn't sure where I was going with all this, so I took some time and drew a bunch of other gangsters. I drew a tall, skinny one. I drew a shorter, more pudgy one. Still wasn't sure where I wanted to go, so I drew some more. I drew the mice. I drew a Scarface. And then a kind of a Godfather mouse, and of course the grandmother. So Kevin's got a big family. They're all kind of involved in each other's lives. And he's mentioned several times that his sisters help him with his kids. But other than that, he doesn't really take part. He kind of keeps his distance. And so Dave envisions himself as this Godfather type figure, even though he's kind of an idiot. So on the 21st of February, 73 days after I'd started making this episode, I was ready to wrap things up. So I had this idea for the Council of Older Sisters. And then when I was putting it together, I actually had to draw other sisters. So here's the oldest sister. Her name is Bethany. I guess Bethany is what you would call a Karen. The other chicken is Meredith, who comes in late. So I wanted to add in another sister that we haven't seen yet, but I used Deb. But then I thought, well, Deb can't be Kevin's sister because she was in that bar scene in that one episode with Kevin and Brock both.
You're a smooth talker.
Anyway, she's still on the council. She's somebody's older sister. So there was Annie, who is the waitress. And then, of course, Rico's sister.
Linda!
So we all remember Linda. Remember her from the very first episode. So at this point in the story, I've just done, the Godfather. And then I thought, if the whole family is upset, we've seen what the brothers are doing. What about the sisters? And I thought, well, what if they have some kind of, star chamber for all the older sisters in the neighborhood? And I thought it turned out okay, but unfortunately, there was nowhere else to go at this point. So it was February 19th when I finally filmed this last little bit. And I still didn't have any idea how this was going to end. So then I thought, well, what if it's all just a dream and he wakes up? And what if it turns out that the Marmalade, for whatever reason, was the one making him dream all these weird things, So anyway, this is pretty much what went through my head and the whole process that I went through to make this episode. Thanks a lot. Couple things before I go. The software I use is not Character Animator 4. It's Cartoon Animator 4. It's by Reallusion. The first version I got back in 2017, I've just been teaching myself this ever since, and it's a really great product. They're not paying me to say this. I bought the license myself, but it's a great product. I really like it, and they have a real good supportive community as well online. Another thing is, I'm not a big marmalade person. I never really liked orange marmalade. It was kind of bitter. But the marmalade that I bought is called Lemon Pear Marmalade. And again, they're not paying me to say this, but it's really good. So to all the fine folks at Reallusion and Stonewall Kitchen,
kudos to you, and kudos again.
Anyway, if you like this video, please click like below, leave a comment, share with your friends. Let me know what you think, and thanks.
All right, we're done here.